Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, welcome to the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's show. Because today we have, well, you guessed it, Ralph Bond. He is going to be joining us. He is our science and tech trends correspondent, and he joins us here every Friday to, discuss good, fun news, because which is actually a little ironic for this week, because this week is, of course, the week of CES, and I really regret that we weren't able to make it out to CES this year because of a few different factors. But I gotta say, I've heard a lot of other people that report on CES, and some of our colleagues that are that also opted to skip this year, that this year is kind of the year that you want to go, because the news out of CES is very focused on, let's face it, NVIDIA, AMD, and a couple of the car companies that are working with NVIDIA and AMD. They're out there, they're trying to push AI as much as they can, because, hey, it's the flavor of the month. It's very, very cool. And it will have big implications. I'm not downplaying it, but this is the year that you need people there at CES. And again, really regret that we weren't able to send ourselves or anyone else out there. But to find the incredible tech companies that are out there making cool products, doing cool things, that are just getting completely covered up by other news reporting that's only reporting the same thing 100 times. So kind of regret that we were able to make it out there. But anyways, CES is going on. We'll probably do a wrap up here in a couple of days, kind of a hindsight. And of course, we'll have interviews from companies that did present out at CES. So keep an eye out for that. With that being said, today, though, we are focused on different kind of news. These are news stories that Ralph finds that are obviously science and tech bent, in so much that they are, hopeful, good. These are good Friday stories that are going to leave you hopefully a little bit, optimistic about where technology is going. So with that being said, I've rambled enough. ComputerAmerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including the show notes. The show notes are very important because Ralph does an amazing job putting together these show notes. And of course, you can find them there on our website every single time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring on Ralph. And Ralph, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And your comments about CES are right on target. In fact, I think they're going to have to rename that event going forward as the Consumer Artificial Intelligence Show.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, CASE. That's such a good
that
acronym.
Sounds good.
It really does seem like, because Ralph, you've seen a lot of CESs as well. There's usually a really cool television that comes out. There's a really cool new processor from Intel that comes out. There's usually a couple of really cool, I believe one year we talked about a car that changed colors, because it was covered with e-ink. There's usually fun stories like that, but this time it's just NVIDIA and AI, and that's it. And I know there's more out there to offer. But hey, we'll probably find it in hindsight. Let's be honest. So
good stuff. And folks, if you're new to the show, welcome. And what we do every Friday is look at 4 recent articles that show us key trends and developments in, well, of course, artificial intelligence, but also robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural technology, space research, physics, you name it, all across the board. And most important of all, as Ben alluded to, we're going to give you an oasis of positive news thanks to the world of science and technology. So get ready for a fun grab bag that'll leave you feeling positive.
Absolutely. And, had a chance to browse through the stories beforehand. And, every home needs a balloon, and that'll be story number 2. But ladies and gentlemen, it's these are all fun and definitely off the beaten path, which is what we love. So story number 1, we're going to go to the little-known institution MIT, but green energy always good. Always good to see new research in the field. And let's talk about story number 1.
Yes, again, this comes from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, their news website, which is fabulous, by the way, of course, no surprise. Headline here is, a new catalyst can turn methane into something useful. MIT chemical engineers have devised a way to capture methane, a potent greenhouse gas, and convert it into polymers. And so this is a really interesting story, but I'm going to give you a little kind of commentary setup before we go into the story. This is a very geeky, complex science news story, but I'm going to cut to the essentials right now, and then we'll dig into some of the details. Mm-hmm. Here's the bottom line. This is all about the creation of a process by MIT to convert methane ultimately into a resin polymer called urea formaldehyde. And urea formaldehyde, as you will learn, can be used for a variety of useful products. So with that said, let's dig into some of the highlights of this story. And by the way, friends, again, if you're new, what we do is we just give you the highlights, kind of like the Reader's Digest condensed version of the stories. You need to go out and get the show notes at computeramerica.com if you want to learn more about anything we're going to talk about today. So let's get into this. Although it is less abundant than carbon dioxide, methane gas contributes disproportionately to global warming because it traps more heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide due to its molecular structure. Catch that? Catches more heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. We hear so much about carbon dioxide, but methane, as Ben, you know, is a real problem. Mm-hmm. And methane is produced by bacteria known as methanogens, which are often highly concentrated in landfills, swamps, and other sites of decaying biomass.
Gives it that lovely aroma that we all associate with methane.
Yes, that's right. And agriculture is a major source of methane. And methane gas is also generated as a byproduct of transporting, storing, and burning natural gas. That's why you're hearing so much of this churn and burn, no pun intended, in the environmental community about banning gas water heaters, banning this and that, banning gas-related things, because, again, a byproduct is methane when you burn natural gas. So that's another whole topic for another day. Mm-hmm. And overall, get this, it's believed that methane accounts for about 15% of global temperature increases. Wow. So there's your problem that we're looking at.
Not everything, but a massive chunk.
Yeah, a big, pretty significant chunk. So MIT chemical engineers have now designed a new catalyst that can convert methane into useful polymers, which could help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And here's a key thing to this. Again, this is very technical. You can learn more in the articles and their published paper and so forth. But again, we're going to give you the essentials. The new catalyst works at a room temperature and atmospheric pressure. Stand by, you're going to find out why that's important in just a moment. So again, the new catalyst works at a room temperature and atmospheric pressure, which could make it easier and more economical to deploy at sites of methane production, such as power plants and, of course, cattle barns and cattle, animal facilities that emit a tremendous amount of methane, as you may know.
Yeah, I believe there was a story a while ago, but for some reason in my mind, I associate like cattle farms with methane and cattle and methane. I don't know what PSA went out to America that, got that stuck in probably a lot of people's heads. But we've done a number of stories over the years of, this is honestly the first one I've heard of trying to capture the methane and do something with it. But Ralph, we've done stories in the past that they're talking about additives to food or changing the feed for cattle, and it would reduce methane by an incredible amount. It's crazy that this is still a problem that we need to tackle, but it's
well, to amplify on your comment there has been research over the many number of years about, can we take the methane and maybe make it into a fuel? And there's been some positive work there, but you're also spot on when you say that there's been research about how can we reduce the production of methane in cattle. by changing diet and so forth. So you're right. This has been an issue that the scientific and research community has been wrestling with for decades. But to go on with our story here, at the molecular level, methane is made of a single carbon atom bound to 4 hydrogen atoms. In theory, this molecule should be a good building block for making useful products such as polymers. Now, here's the deal. However, converting methane to other compounds has proven difficult to date because getting it to react with other molecules usually requires high temperature and high pressures. And what we're going to find out is that this new MIT process works at room temperature and atmospheric pressure, as we just said a moment ago. This is a key. To achieve methane conversion without that input of energy, that's high temperature and high pressure, the MIT team designed a hybrid catalyst with 2 components, a zeolite and a naturally occurring enzyme. And by the way, zeolites are abundant, inexpensive, clay-like minerals. So here we go, a little kind of aside. The article goes on to provide lots of details about how MIT's new process can be used to ultimately produce formaldehyde, which in turn sets the stage for the creation of urea formaldehyde, which can then be used in a variety of useful products. Go to the show notes because you'll get to the real article and find out all the details. The author notes once formaldehyde is produced, the researchers showed they could use that molecule to generate polymers by adding urea. Sound familiar? A nitrogen-containing molecule found in urine. Okay. This resin-like polymer known as urea formaldehyde, the end result of this long process, is now used in particle boards, textiles, and many other products that impact our daily lives. So it's very convoluted in a way, very complex, but it's very, very important, a very clever way. Because it doesn't require high heat and high atmospheric pressure, it can be deployed to a cattle farm, for example, and capture that methane and ultimately produce valuable, useful, everyday products.
Yeah, the takeaway I want everyone to think about is, those maybe your next, let's say, Tupperware container, or I should say food storage container, might be made out of methane and urea. And urea. Yeah, just think about that next time you're putting away your food. It's yeah, maybe not, but still, it's turning chemicals into something very useful and hopefully less damaging to the environment at the same time. So,
right,
a win-win, and it's really cool that they're able to, take out the enormous energy, I guess, kind of cost of it all. So, good job, MIT. As always, no notes for MIT. They're doing good. No, don't need to worry about them. Story number 2, let's go ahead. And this one was cool because, it's, Ralph, like, I think when people think about how to get energy at home, maybe they put up a little wind turbine, like, a consumer grade wind turbine. Maybe they get solar panels on their roof. Maybe they do this, they do that. There's so many solutions for not off the grid. I don't think we're really there yet for most systems. But, reducing your impact on the grid. And this is a really interesting one because, I don't live with an HOA. I can't imagine what an HOA would think about this. Maybe they'd be into it, but this is cool though. It's definitely off the wall.
Yeah. So let's dive into this. This comes from techexplorer.com, a wonderful outlet. Headline: Balloon system can produce localized solar electricity for the ground below. And this is right off the top. I'll preface this by saying, what an incredibly simple and clever idea. And I'm going to jump ahead and say where I think this really makes sense, Ben, is when you have, and you can relate to this, natural disasters hit an area, power is a problem. Could you deploy these balloons very easily to help communities generate electricity in the case of natural disasters and so forth? I think that's where this is really important, but I'm jumping ahead, folks. And if you're following along with us on the video, you can see the chart that's provided in their research paper, which really does a great job of explaining this. But if you're listening to us as a podcast, let me try to do it with words only. So here we go. A team of engineers and environmental scientists from Sweden and China, there's 2 universities in China and 1 in Sweden that contributed researchers to this program. I'm not going to try to pronounce the names of these universities because I'd butcher them. So just come to the show notes if you want that detail. But this team of researchers from Sweden and China, interesting mix, excuse me, has developed a balloon system for producing and delivering electricity to the ground below. Now, of course, some places are not very conducive to the production of solar power, especially in the northern latitudes where snow can periodically cover solar cells. We're going through that right now here in Oregon. In this recent study, the research team outlines the development of a decentralized way to produce solar power almost anywhere. So they call it a balloon integrated photovoltaic system. A balloon is sent aloft with a solar collector, and it sends the electricity produced down to the ground via an electrical cord. Okay. Now, the balloon is a hybrid. It stays aloft with a mix of air and helium. And this is the clever part, Ben, and it's so well shown in the illustration for the research paper. Its top half is made of a transparent material that captures sunlight and concentrates it using its refractive, properties. Okay. And then the bottom half of the balloon is made of a material that further concentrates the light and in so doing reduces the installation area of the solar cell that hangs below without sacrificing harvesting efficiency. Yeah. Situating the photovoltaic cells on the bottom of the balloon protects them from rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Again, think about your rooftop solar panels. When the snowpack comes on, their production is dramatically reduced. Not with this. This is a system that's designed to avoid that. Now, the system also has an exhaust valve for gas exchange to maintain the desired pressure inside the balloon. And next to the solar cells are storage and control modules to manage electric power flow. It's just so clever. You have to see the illustration to appreciate how simple and clever this is.
It seems so strange at first blush, but there's a lot of benefits by putting it up in the air, reducing the ground footprint that you have to worry about, and of course all the other kind of worries that you have. There's so many benefits that you're right. The article outlines I did not think about.
It's extremely clever, really clever. So you have 4 cables are used to stabilize the balloon, and a rope and an electrical cord are attached to the ground. The balloon is meant to be positioned just high enough to avoid shade from trees or buildings. So it's not going way, way up. It could, but it's not. It's meant to be simple, deployable, and you could throttle the elevation of the balloon to avoid any obstructions. This also makes it, to my mind, Ben, once again, a really powerful tool for disaster situations where you need to reinstate electricity, or extremely remote situations where you don't have a grid, you don't have electrical service. So this is another possibility as well. The team has tested their system locally and have used simulations to study likely performance characteristics of the balloon integrated photovoltaic system in 5 major cities across the globe. And here's this, you're going to love this. They found the average monthly production of one of their balloons to be between 3.5 and 4 gigawatt hours of power. And we're going to explain why that's so important in just a second. They also note that if desired, of course, multiple balloons could be sent aloft to generate as much power as is needed for a given location. And just a little side note here that I inserted into this notes. 1 gigawatt hour of electricity can power about 750,000 homes for 1 hour, or approximately 25,000 homes for an entire month. That's 1 gigawatt. These folks are claiming, now this is their claim in their research paper, that one balloon can do 3.5 to 4 gigawatt hours of power per month. And so do the math. That's a lot of service area just one balloon could potentially help.
Yeah, that seems
almost
very
hard to believe.
high. And not to make a pun, seems like a very lofty goal to thank you. To
Do you think it's inflated?
Yeah, a little inflated number. It could, but still, even if it were a fraction of that, like you said, this could be something that could be as important as a generator, is to a home, just in case of emergencies. So while the research, I think, and although Ralph, like Sweden, China, multiple universities in these places. Like it seems like it has some pedigree behind it. I'm curious to see it work in action. They say they tested it locally, which means, probably at the university, but I'm curious. And hey, that is what these stories are really meant to do. To entice and to, hey, maybe even make you come out of the show notes at our website and, hey, check out more, because there is more to these articles and there is more in the published paper. So you can check that out. Very cool. Story number 2. Story number 3. Let's go ahead and, this one is in the world of robotics. I think that when it comes to like sweat and prosthesis and whatnot, sweat's usually a big problem. It's uncomfortable. It could cause problems with the stuff. But in this one, it may be the key to helping, with robots in the future. So Ralph, story number 3, and sweaty robots.
Yes, there you go. Sweaty robots. That's so funny. This comes from livescience.com. And the headline here, of course, was irresistible. It says, future robots could one day tell how you're feeling by measuring your sweat, scientists say. Okay, that's irresistible. Every time I hear the word sweat, I think of my mother, who was a very proper person, who said, no, horses sweat. People perspire. But anyway,
I have heard that as well. That must be from something. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So here we go in the story. Scientists at the Tokyo Metropolitan University say a phenomenon called skin conductance, which changes when you sweat, is surprisingly accurate method for detecting emotions. And with future robots that detect this, able to tell your emotions. And I'm going to warn you up front, the bit about robots is a little bit of an extension or a far reach. We'll get to that at the end of the story. But nonetheless, still a cool thing. In a new study from the Tokyo Metropolitan University, scientists use skin conductance, a measure of how well skin conducts electricity, to assess the emotions of 33 participants who were shown emotionally evocative videos. Because skin conductance changes when you sweat, they found a correlation between these measurements and videos that elicited feelings of fear, surprise, and family bonding emotions, making skin conductance an accurate method for detecting changes in emotion in real time. For the study, the scientists attached probes to the fingertips actually, of 33 participants and showed them a variety of emotionally charged video clips, including horror movie scenes, comedy sketches, and family reunion videos, as alluded to a moment ago. As they watched, the team measured how quickly the participants' skin conductance peaked and how long it took to return to normal. And Ben, why fingers? Well, I learned that fingertips have a lot of sweat glands. In fact, they are one of the areas with the highest concentration of sweat glands in our body, on our body. What? You just don't think about it, right? I mean, I'm not putting antiperspirant on my fingertips every day.
No, and you kind of get the feeling of like, clammy hands and stuff like that sometimes. Yes. But generally, you don't think about sweat and, hands. You're right.
Yes.
That's a very
unique. That's so true. Yeah. But by the way, this is because fingertips play a critical role in touch and grip. The moisture from sweat in our fingers helps to increase friction between the skin and surfaces, which is essential for holding objects securely. Oh, okay, I get it.
So that's the problem with all those Amazon robots we're seeing, just fumble around. They need to make them, little sweat glands in their robot hands. Makes sense.
There you go. When used in conjunction with other physiological signals, like heart rate monitoring and brain activity, skin conductance could play a central role in the development of, this is key, emotionally intelligent devices and services. Okay. Although the study didn't specifically explore integrating the technology with robotics, that was my call out earlier that the headline is a little bit aggressive. So again, although the study didn't specifically explore integrating this technology with robotics, systems that can respond to human emotions hold several promising applications. And to wrap things up, they say this could hypothetically, remember what we do here is trends, early research. Let's see where it goes. But this could hypothetically include smart devices that play soothing music when you are stressed, or streaming platforms that tailor content recommendations based on your mood. Imagine, firing up your Fire Stick or your Roku device or your computer or your smartphone and maybe touching something, and it goes, "Oh, dude, you need some meditation music right now." It's an interesting thing to think about. And you talk about CES this week in Las Vegas. So much about consumer robotics, right? Tons and tons of these little like friend robots that talk to you and so on and so forth. Imagine if they could say, "Give me your hand," and you put your hand in their hand, and "Oh, Ralph, you need some rock and roll right now, or you need some meditation music."
you need a hug, Ralph. Yeah, exactly.
I need a hug. That's it.
Just to put on my future cap, I could see that, like, Ralph, when you're in, like, let's say the hospital, you have the finger readers that read your heart rate and stuff like that. Integrate this in there with it, and it would constantly track maybe your mood or your emotion, your stress levels, and your medical team could, or even like at home care, and you're wearing one of these constantly, integrate it into something that you're already wearing, and then they can see, okay, stress levels are peaking. Let's check in on this person. Let's see what they need.
Yes,
and,
yes, and
maybe
Ben,
be more
your
responsive.
comment about hospitals, that's really interesting, because as you were speaking, I thought, one of the big challenges, because I have grandkids, 3 5-year-olds and 1 3-year-old, and they've had to go to the ER and different things like this occasionally, not too often, thank God. But it's very difficult for medical staff to get a reading about the emotions of a child patient who may not be able to communicate very clearly, or you get the picture. Well, what if they could put something on the fingertips of the child and get a sense of where their emotions are at? That's kind of interesting. What about police interrogation work? This would be a new thing. Maybe, to help police determine the person's emotional state when they're interviewing a suspect or something along those lines. So there are many, many possibilities here.
for sure. And obviously the author, like you said, jumped to robotics, but I think this has a lot of application, in a lot of different settings. So there you go. Very cool. Story number 3. Let's go ahead and talk about story number 4. And everyone who loves needles, there's so few of you out there. And that's okay, because for the rest of us, story number 4 might, 3. Okay, no. Microneedles sound less scary because micro good.
Oh, yeah.
But these might be for people for, I guess, hearing loss. And honestly, Ralph, I grew up with, severe, like, tubes in my ears and a lot of ear infections growing up. And, like, I was, I guess, functionally deaf from like the ages of 1 to 4.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's, and obviously I don't remember a lot of that time or really any of that time being deaf, but having the ability to hear, it's pretty cool. And I think really a lot of people should get the same, treatment and be able to hear. I can't imagine going through life without hearing. And story number 4 might hopefully lead to more people being able to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. So. And again, folks, if you're new to the show, what Ben and I usually do, the last story that we highlight in detail each Friday is usually medical technology, medical science advances, and this fits that perfectly. This comes from interestingengineering.com. Found it posted, though, through MSN. Headline: World's first 3D printed microneedles pave way for hearing loss treatments. And this is all going to make sense in just a few moments. And if you got the show notes, if you're looking at the video, you can see a very close-up picture of this extraordinarily tiny 3D printed microneedle. But here's the scoop. In a groundbreaking effort to enhance medical treatments for hearing loss and other inner ear conditions, a dedicated team of physicians and engineers has collaborated for over a decade to develop an innovative microneedle. More than a decade to develop this thing. And again, this is a great example, Ben, of the importance of 3D printing in so many fields today. This ultra-thin and ultra-sharp device is poised to change the precision medicine landscape for the inner ear. Wow. The creators of this cutting-edge needle, ear, nose, and throat surgeon Anil Lawani, and mechanical engineer Jeffrey Kaiser from Columbia University, salute to Columbia for this one, believe their invention will be a game changer in delivering therapies to previously inaccessible areas within the cochlea. And remember, the cochlea is the spiral-shaped, fluid-filled structure in the inner ear responsible for hearing. Wow. The researcher Lawani remarked, quote, "It's not an exaggeration to say our microneedle could be key to precision medicine for the inner ear." Wow, Ben, such a great development.
I guess you just can't have I'm sorry, if this is a microneedle, I guess you can't just have a macroneedle, like a bill needle punching a hole right through that ear. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're hitting on something that the article talks about. The development of this microneedle comes at a critical time when gene therapy can potentially restore hearing by regenerating cells damaged by loud noises. So this is part of why they're so excited. However, accurately and safely delivering these therapies has proven challenging due to the cochlea's complex anatomy, and I would add delicate. Accessing the necessary cells requires navigating through a roughly 2 millimeter wide delicate membrane of the cochlea that often tears when traditional surgical instruments are used. So this has been the barrier. This has been the problem. This is why this incredibly tiny, incredibly thin needle they've created through 3D printing is so important.
This ties in, Ralph, with a statistic that I heard not so long ago, and I just Googled it to find it. This is from 2023, saying 17% of teenagers and 19% of 19% of adults in their 20s have noise-induced hearing loss. And everyone, turn down your music. Your headphones are so big and so powerful.
Headphones.
Yeah, they can cause so much damage. But like this isn't just, how do we get people, in their later years listening? Like a lot of young people have, hearing loss. So this is going to help everyone.
Yeah, you're so right. And what the article talks about is using the traditional instruments before the development of this amazing 3D one. Traditional instruments would lead to irreversible hearing loss and balance issues if the cochlea is torn. So you're trying to help the patient, you might induce permanent irreversible loss. So a terrible thing. That's why physicians will hesitate a great deal, but not now, hopefully, with this new 3D incredibly tiny needle. One of the primary objectives of this microneedle is to introduce treatments into the cochlea without damaging this fragile membrane, as we've been saying. Additionally, the needle will enable fluid extraction from the cochlea, adding in diagnosing inner ear disorders like Meniere's disease, which causes dizziness, nausea, and hearing loss. Analyzing this fluid. So there's this idea of you can dispense gene therapy into the ear, but you could also extract fluid for all this analysis, right? So analyzing this fluid could enhance understanding of these conditions and facilitate the development of more effective treatments. Hallelujah, another uplifting advance in medical science.
And I'm sure that, the ear is kind of what they're focusing on in this article, but I'm sure the body is just full of membranes and tissues and things that you don't want tearing, that you don't want breaking.
Right.
And you need to get through them or get things out of them. So very, very cool. And, the picture really sells it. Like, honestly, the needle looks like, a needle, like a much larger needle, but obviously this is under some kind of microscope, and it is incredibly small. It's
and
but
notice
so well made.
There's two holes. If you look at the tip of the
top
needle,
and bottom.
the two holes there, that's your dispensing for either the gene therapy dispensing or the extraction, sucking in of fluid from the cochlea. So, wow, pretty cool, huh?
Just the precision, because seeing what 3D printers used to be and seeing what they are now, the precision of these 3D printers is really incredible.
Stunning.
And the tiny scale. So very cool. And ladies and gentlemen, if you missed out, Ralph keeps saying, look at that picture. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see those pictures that Ralph has included in the show notes, you can definitely do that over at computeramerica.com. And while you're there, because by the time that you hear this, you can check out the show notes. The show notes also include honorable mentions. They're down there at the bottom after story number 4. And these are stories that we just don't have time for. We're trying to, keep the show to a bit of a shorter time format. And that means that, all the fun stories that Ralph finds, it's not like, well, scraping the bottom of the barrel, we can only get 4 every week. No, Ralph does an amazing job of finding a ton of different stories. So the honorable mentions are stories that we just did not get to, and they are still great. So you can check them out in the show notes, but we can at least give you the headlines. So Ralph, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah. So we have 4 honorable mentions. The first one comes from space.com. And this is really fun. It's not so much an announcement of brand new news and so forth, but kind of a recap. So it says launches, moon landings, and more. Here's the top spaceflight missions to watch in 2025. So if you want to get a kind of grab bag of what to look for as we go into this new year, this is a fun one in the area of space research and exploration. The next honorable mention is from extremetech.com. I love that name, Extreme Tech. JPL offers sneak peek at Ingenuity helicopter's possible successor. So the successor to Ingenuity, it's a really cool looking drone-like helicopter. Check that out. That's really cool. The next one is from livescience.com. This is really curious. Future wearable devices could draw power through your body using background 6G cell phone signals. What? Wow. Okay.
As if we didn't have enough news stories about 5G and all the things it could cause. Now we're having a story about 6G coming
6G.
through your body, powering things. That's crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? I mean, that's a fun story. Check it out, folks. You'll love it. And our last honorable mention, medical related, from sciencealert.com. Headline, the key to creating blood stem cells may lie in your own blood. And Ben, you've seen over the past several months, several medical stories where it's all about taking the patient's own stem cells to make treatments and so forth, genetic treatments. And so this is kind of related to that. Again, the key to creating blood stem cells may lie in your own blood. Check that out. And that's our show for this week. And I hope it's leaving you with an upbeat, positive feeling for 2025 and beyond. Because we've got a lot of darkness around us. This is some light.
No, this is always fun, and as always, I can't imagine a better way to kind of end the week. It's always a lot of very uplifting stories, and Ralph, you picked a great combination of them. So everyone out there, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, joining us. This is always a lot of fun, and Ralph joins us every single Friday to do these stories, and comes with 4 different stories. And ladies and gentlemen, it's always just a lot of fun. So we'll be back next time. We'll do a CES recap here soon, and in the meantime, everyone, we will catch you at the next show. Be safe, do good, and hey, do something fun. It's a good week. Everyone, catch you next time. Bye, everyone.